The UConn women are playing Ole Miss today, but the road ahead, whew, buckle up. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, just want to take a quick moment to say how thankful we are for all of you. This podcast has grown so much since it started earlier this year, and it's because of fans like you who value great content. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast that covers both UConn men's and women's basketball, the basketball capital of the world, and we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. To show our gratitude, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to, you guessed it, the Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to UConn games, and we're also making a monthly donation to Bleeding Blue for Good, supporting NIL initiatives that make a difference. If you're enjoying the show, take a moment to subscribe, follow, leave a review wherever you listen. Thanks again for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We couldn't do this without you, especially my everydayers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, let's break down what's ahead for the Huskies in the Baha Mar Championship game against Ole Miss. This is going to be an interesting matchup for a few reasons. First, let's acknowledge the quick turnaround. The Huskies are fresh off a decisive 71-52 win over Oregon State. But as Geno Auriemma himself has said, this game is going to be a completely different beast. Ole Miss is not Oregon State. They're not a team that's rebuilding after losing players to the transfer portal. No, Ole Miss is loaded with veterans, starting 4 fifth-year players alongside an impressive freshman in Sierra Thanu. This means the Rebels bring experience, depth, and a whole lot of energy. They've got 8 players averaging at least 16 minutes a game. Their coach, Yolette McPhee-McCune, is known for utilizing her entire bench. She's gone 10 players deep in 5 games so far this season. So that's going to put pressure on UConn's younger roster. So the Huskies are getting healthier, and having AZ Fudd back is a game changer. But let's not forget about 5 of UConn's players are newcomers. So Paige is literally the only active Husky with more than 1 full season of experience in stores. So there's still a learning curve for this group. Ole Miss plays a disruptive style of basketball. They forced every opponent this season into at least 20 turnovers and ranked 6th nationally in scoring defense, giving up just 46 points per game. For comparison, UConn is 5th in the same category. So we're looking at a game where both teams are going to try to focus on shutting the other team down defensively. And that's exactly the type of test I think Geno wants for his team. And he said, this is a quote from Geno. The contrast between the game we played and what it's going to be like on Wednesday is massive. 180-degree difference. He knows Ole Miss is going to bring size, athleticism, and quickness, and that means UConn can't afford to make the kind of young mistakes they've made in moments this year. Mental lapses, like what we saw in the Carolina game, will get punished, plain and simple. And honestly, this is why you come to these tournaments, to put yourself in a challenging situation early in the season so you're battle-tested come March. And with these MTEs, I think the really interesting thing is the aspect of the quick turnaround, having only like a day to look at any type of film, game plan. So you really have to kind of trust your players. And I think that's the tough thing with this team is, even though they're gelling into what is going to be a really good team for the year, it's going to be an interesting situation for them in this game. I think it's going to be closer than people think. Let's double check. I think I'm going to pause. I want to see what the spread is. The only spread I found was 18, UConn minus 18. So obviously these, first off, I think that's like the last frontier of women's basketball when you can find readily available spreads for betting on women's basketball on a daily basis, then that is where the sport needs to kind of hit the next group of people to kind of really get an explosion of even more viewership. Because I know it's at an all-time high right now, but I mean, I should be able to do, the same way I'm able to do like the UConn men. If I want to do a, will solo ball score over 13 points, I can do that on Prize Picks, one of our sponsors. I want to be able to do that with Paige Beckers or with AZ or whoever. So not to say that I'm a degenerate gambler, because I'm not, but it's just one of those things where it's something I've noticed. Like when we do these FanDuel ads, which is our title sponsor today, like if you go on there, you can do future bets. Like you can bet the money line right now on the women's game, but you can't bet the spread. And maybe the spread is too high. Maybe FanDuel feels like UConn's a 30-point favorite and they don't want to do that. But even when you look at the spreads with like the men and when they play bye games and it's like a 36 or 37-point spread and they cover it, that's the breaks, right? Anyway, that's a rant. But I think this game is going to be a nice test for them. Like Geno was saying, it's a much more advanced team in terms of IQ. There, tons of talent on this team. May not be the level of UConn, but sometimes that doesn't matter. I think this team could outsmart them potentially, just with their the amount of basketball they played in their careers. So we'll see. I still think it's going to be a game that UConn is obviously favored by a lot and should end up winning. I think some of the keys will be how he mixes in a little more minutes for AZ now that she's, hit a couple shots, feeling a little better about herself. I love Jana's last game, watching that late on like a delay. I thought she really got away from being that do it all at once mode, and she's slowed down. And I think that's going to help them in this game as well. I think adding her post presence is what's going to take this UConn team to the next level. All right. We're going to take a break and come back and talk about the keys to victory. And then also buckle up, guys. Winter is coming. The gauntlet of this schedule after this game is wild. We'll talk about it. Welcome back. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn with your host here, Mark Zanetto, as always. UConn's keys to victory. How does it handle this Ole Miss team? Let's start with what the Rebels bring to the table. KK Deans is their leader, and she's back in form after a knee injury last season. She's averaging 13.2 points per game. But it's not just her. 4 of their 5 starters are averaging in double figures. And Thanu, the freshman, is starting to heat up. She's shooting 78% over her last 3 games, including 5 for 8 from behind the arc. Ole Miss has a sneaky amount of weapons, and they're not afraid to use them. But here's the thing. UConn has an edge where it really matters, shooting. Ole Miss has been holding teams to just 23% from three-point range, which sounds impressive until you realize they haven't really faced a team like UConn. The Huskies, as we know, are loaded with outside threats. Whether they make them tonight is another story. Paige is literally hitting nearly 46% from deep on 4.8 attempts per game. So essentially five shots a game. She's almost 50%. And AZ Fudd is rediscovering her rhythm, as I mentioned in the last segment. She made her first 3 since returning in a win over Oregon State, and you can feel that confidence starting to grow. Then there's obviously the bench. Freshmen like Morgan Shelley, Ali Zaval are both hitting above 36% from 3. Even Sarah Strong, who started incredibly slow from behind the arc, has gotten stronger, if you will, has gone 6 for 12 in her last 2 games. And you can see that. I said this just in passing to a friend when I was watching the game the other night, that Sarah initially as a shooter, and I'm by no means a guru, but one of the things that I actually can do very well on a basketball court is shoot the rock. And you can just see when someone shoots like that rotation. And if you're listening to this, I'm putting my hands up so that the audience can see it. Like when that shot is pure and you're just kind of letting the arm, the flick of the wrist kind of follow through and you're in rhythm. It felt like she was like almost like pushing it a little too much and not getting that feel that every shooter that knows how to shoot with rotation will tell you, like when you release it and you just know it's going in. That's the confidence that she's shooting the rock with right now. And I think that's where AZ will be very soon. Just keep shooting. You shoot yourself out of a slump. You don't pass up open shots. So if UConn can control the pace and spread the floor with their shooters, that's where they'll find their edge. But it's not just about offense. UConn's defense has to stay disciplined. Ole Miss thrives on turnovers. Thrives. And KK Arnold put it perfectly. If they throw a punch, we have to throw one right back. That means being strong with the ball, staying aggressive, and avoiding the kind of mental mistakes Geno warned us about. And let's not forget, this is only Ole Miss's second game against a ranked opponent this season. They played number 6 USC tough. I watched that game. Really hard-nosed team. This game is going to be a lot closer than that 18-point spread that I found. They lost to USC 68-66. UConn is set up for even that. The Huskies' ball movement, their chemistry, their ability to communicate on the fly, all these things that have been improved dramatically in the last month. Couple that with AZ, even talked about how much progress this team has made going from barely on the same page to being able to read each other's minds on the court. That's the kind of chemistry that wins championships, but also it's the kind of chemistry that you need early in the season because you don't know these teams that well. These are out of conference. This is like tournament play. It literally is the championship of the Baha Mar, tourney, but I'm talking about NCAA tournament type. You go from one team to the next and there's a day in between and anything can happen. But bottom line is this. Let's be incredibly fair and clear about this. This is UConn's game to lose. I know they played USC tough, but we don't do that transitive property stuff. It doesn't matter. UConn is the better team. If the Huskies play smart, if they limit turnovers and they hit their shots, all Captain Obvious calls, right? So play smart, don't turn the ball over, make open shots. They should walk away with the Baha Mar Championship trophy. But if they let Ole Miss dictate and they maybe have a few more turnovers than Geno likes, or if every time they get an open look, they don't cash in, that could make it a lot closer. You notice how I'm saying I don't think they'll lose at all. Like, I don't think, even if it's like a close game, but I think it's a good opportunity for Geno to keep tinkering with his rotation. And I think if UConn clicks on all cylinders, it'll show why they're going to be one of the best teams in the country towards the end of the year. So when we return, last segment of the day, buckle up, guys. This stretch after this game tonight is not for the faint of heart. We're locked on. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn. The gauntlet ahead. Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture for a second. What we're seeing right now is a team that's starting to round into a well-oiled machine. Few little speed bumps, like some lulls in the Carolina game, a little bit of a lull in the Oregon State game. But you can just feel the way they're moving the ball. Jana being involved now, AZ being involved. You got Aubrey and Caroline warming up with the team. They're not here yet, but you can see that they're almost completely whole. I got some heat in the comments that like, hey, we're not whole. We're still missing, blah, blah, blah. And while that's true, I was using that as a direct quote from Geno that we're whole now with AZ back. So anyway, this UConn team is sharpening up at the right time because let me tell you, the challenges are about to get real. Like real. Sure, they've got a quick trip back home to play Holy Cross, a nice little breather. But after that, guys, the schedule is no joke. First up, we've got 24th ranked Louisville. ACC team, tough. I know anywhere between 15 and 24 in women's college basketball. can be a little shaky at times. But I mean, Carolina, who apparently was not quote unquote that good, and I'm not, giving Emily Adams any guff because she's my girl and she's done an amazing job for us. I'm talking more about they were good. That Carolina team was a good team, and they cut that lead to 9, and probably could have cut it to 4 if they made some shots down the stretch. But that's the thing. Women's basketball is not 10 teams anymore. There's 30 good teams, and you got Louisville here, and let's face it, it's going to be a battle. But it doesn't stop there. So let's say you win that game. Then we go to Notre Dame, who's number 3 in the country, on the road. That's a game every women's basketball fan will have circled, and we circled it earlier in the year, and that's going to be a absolute war. I mean, Hannah Hidalgo she's their Paige Beckers. I mean, I'm not saying she is, but she's theirs, right? Doesn't stop there. After Notre Dame, the Huskies take on 15th ranked Iowa State, and then 6th ranked USC. All of this happens before Christmas. It's November 27th, guys. We're a day before Thanksgiving. There's 3 weeks until Christmas, or 4 weeks if you give kind of a couple days here. All of those games are happening in the next 20 to 25 days, whatever it is. So all of this stretch is going to tell us so much about who this UConn team really is. Are they as deep as we think they are? Can the freshmen continue to step up under pressure? Will the veterans like Paige and AZ continue to lead the charge against top-tier competition? These are the questions that are going to be answered over the next few weeks. And I'm here for it, man. This is going to be a really fun stretch to be covering this team and to really kind of dive into who this team is, how they react. If you're a fan of both the men's and women's, you've seen that the men have had some really tough, had a tough stretch here as they're playing the Maui, and we're reacting to that as well. I have a feeling that the UConn women are not going to have a similar fate as the men, but there may be a few speed bumps. I've circled Notre Dame as a game they likely will lose on the road. I hope I'm wrong. I say that all the time. When I say a team is going to lose that I want them to win, I'm happy to be wrong. But when you're covering UConn, there's not a lot of games that you expect them to lose, right? So, and here's the exciting part. Not worried about any of this. This team thrives on challenges. Geno is the perfect person and knows how to get his team ready in these stretches. And this is what they live for. It's not just about playing the best. It's about proving they're the best, especially now as they have their team kind of rounding itself whole and getting themselves ready for bigger games in the turn of 2025. So let's get ready. Husky Nation, right? The next month is going to be a roller coaster, and we're going to learn a lot about this team before the calendar flips to 2025, whether it's their resilience, their chemistry, or their ability to step up in big moments. This gauntlet will reveal it all. So stick with us here on Locked On UConn as we break it down game by game. It's going to be fun. It's going to be intense. And as always, it's going to be a lot of fun talking about UConn basketball. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked on, stay connected, and to remember, it's not just about getting it done. It's about doing it in a way that it can't be done any better. That's our goal every day. Remember, go Huskies.